You're listening to Thrill Talk, where we discuss business, life, and everything else we like. Produced in Tucson, Arizona, and brought to you by Team Integrity Homes and the Military PCS Referral Network. Here's Aaron and Chase.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
Hey, Monday.
Monday.
Football just started.
Ooh, tell me about football this weekend.
Well, Patriots are just dominating, and I'm not a Patriots fan, but you know what? You cannot complain.
No, they're
legit.
They get it done.
That's right.
100%.
All the drama with Mr. Brown there.
Yeah, we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and while I'm not the biggest football fan in the world, it's fun watching stuff unfold and the dynamics.
No, it's not stuff. It's drama.
Yeah. What's amazing to me is seeing how some of the most wealthiest people in the world act.
Yeah.
So, but there's people listening to this podcast that go, I have no idea what you're talking about or who you're talking about. Yeah. So Antonio Brown gets the boot. He was supposed to make $20 million this year. $30 million. And couldn't keep it together. Now there's three sides of every story. Each side and then the truth somewhere in the middle. But, yeah, just...
Well, bottom line is he's got a little bit of a history there of his drama.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why you're looking at Steelers let him go, and then he goes on with the Raiders, and then they didn't tolerate it too long. Matter of fact, they tolerated it all the way up to 2 days before the season started. So therefore,
and from
I applaud them.
A lot of people's opinion, a phenomenal.
Oh, he's a phenomenal athlete.
Player.
And that's what's kind of sad about the situation. You let that get to you.
Yeah. So culture is a big thing, and that all it did not come down. If the organization was only worried about performance alone, they would have kept him.
That's right.
Yep.
I agree with that.
But culturally was not a fit, so ended up a free agent essentially.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I don't know what goes on inside the locker room. However, I can only imagine how toxic it could be, and I think that's what they were probably looking at too. And they don't want to kind of elaborate too much on that as well.
For sure. So let's talk about culture. Culture can be a game changer, one way or the other. When you bring somebody into your organization, whether that be a sports team, a bank, school, or real estate team. When you bring somebody in, culture is going to change inevitably because you bring in a different dynamic. But based off of your vetting of that person, that culture should hopefully go up for the positive, correct?
That's right.
Now, a lot of the times when you bring someone into an organization, they can negatively impact the culture. And that could be their own doing, or it could be people that that don't enjoy change. They want the culture to stay the same the way that it has always been, right? Have you seen this in your teams? Going back to military.
Yeah, that anybody that new gets added to a team, what happens is everything kind of drops to the level of that person until they figure it out. The other thing that we got to remember is the new member that's coming into an organization. To be quite honest, they're nervous. They really are, and they want to fit in. So they're going to sometimes it be a little bit awkward or, in the beginning, but they just got to find that, their natural, human characteristics going to carry them instead of, trying to be fake. You can only fake it so long.
So when going back to special operations, where you spent a good chunk of your time with that, when people would come into the team, was it one at a time or was it an influx of five in, five out?
Typically it's a one at a time, because if you bring in too much, then that can be a problem, because then that can start to click on the side and, et cetera. But usually one at a time is how we. So
how do you, how do let's go to the rescue unit. How do they have trust off the bat, or even do they, so say you've got a team that's on a bird and a new pilot comes in. Like everybody on that bird now is entrusted literally their lives to that one person, correct?
Correct.
How do you high five somebody, introduce them, and then jump on a bird with them? And then
They'd have crew integrity, crew cohesiveness, and take care of one another. But the thing is, when you have somebody new that comes in, it's a different element that can be added to it, and it could be positive or it could be detrimental as well. So it's understanding how everything flows to begin with. So therefore, usually within our organization, what would happen is somebody's coming from one of the other bases. So therefore, they're reaching out to that base, trying to find out some information on them prior to them getting there. So if they've got a bad rap, they're coming in with a bad rap.
and that
If they're good, they're good.
that would transcend
Oh,
locations.
absolutely. So that can be good or that can be bad. So if
Yeah.
you've got if you made a couple mistakes, you're gonna have to prove yourself. And of course, we all make mistakes. Don't get me wrong, but it depends on how often those mistakes are.
So at some point, you just have to trust the system.
Oh yeah,
Well, and what we were
And the
talking
people
about,
around you.
we were talking about last podcast after we got done reviewing some books was checklist.
Yeah.
Hopefully, right, if you follow a checklist, it'll whittle down the chances of human error.
it takes out the human element.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and that's
if-
the thing is all checklists. If you think about it, all checklists, they're just basically there for success for that particular process.
Yep.
That's all it is. And the thing is I think too many people look into it. Say they're boring, they're mundane, they're just so they just kind of go off at their own pace sometimes, and then inevitably it will get them in trouble.
Yeah, but when you follow a proven checklist, right, because that's the key part of it, I could come up with a checklist on how to rebuild a helicopter engine, but that's not going to mean anything because that's not a good checklist. When you follow a good checklist, you should hopefully have good results.
Yes. Well, it's a series of a process that is going to prove results. So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is, I remember talking to people about this. It's like there's a checklist for everything. I mean, we run checklists in our normal everyday life. It's just sometimes that we don't have to document it or we don't have to look at it. I mean, once it becomes a habit, it's a little bit different than something that you, like you said, if you got to build something like a helicopter, whatever. Yeah, there's going to be checklists and there's going to be books on it. But the thing is that's only done once in a while. Where people get in trouble is they think that they can get away from that from everyday tasks. So I kind of correlate like there's basically 8 to 12 steps on refueling a helicopter. It's a lot easier to refuel a helicopter than it is your own car, to be
Really?
honest with you. But we don't have checklists on our car, but we do on helicopter. So it's just very broken down, very simple.
Yeah.
And I think we tend to overthink things and become too confident, and that's when things happen. And matter of fact, that's when things happen with air crew or air, crashes and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that
There's a checklist. Basically, if something starts going wrong, you flip open the checklist to a certain area and you go through these steps.
so. We've talked about that. There was a video that was put out there of it was a 63,
53.
53. The rotor blew up.
Oh, that was that was a 60.
Or a 60.
Yeah.
Rotor blew up, and in this video, you see these guys in the midst of what they thought was
Yeah,
catastrophe.
they were flying pretty high, and
Yeah,
a
and-
blade just disintegrated.
Yeah, but you see them in the video. Like at one point, you see them like literally with the checklist. Like
That's
they
right.
they're going.
You try to take the emotion out of it and just go by the proven.
Yeah.
process.
So I think one of the reasons why most people don't like checklists is they think that they're losing their personality, which you can still have a personality inside of a checklist, right? We've got, for our business, for example, we have open houses. The traditional open house is you put it on the MLS, maybe put it on Zillow, you put some signs out, and you pray that somebody shows up. That is the 3 steps to an open house traditionally. Versus, I don't even know how many steps are on ours, but it's a lot of starting out, 7 days prior to the open house, and you follow all this. And it's not the sexiest checklist in the world, but it's one that if it's done right, will have a proven result. And you can still have your personality within that, right? You're still on a personality when you make phone calls, when you introduce people. You still can have a personality. It's just within the checklist.
I think and I don't know. I think a lot of people don't do it because they just want to go, you know what? I don't want to do that right now. That's not that important. Oh, you know what? I'll just keep doing this. And then they wonder at the very end why something wasn't successful. Or they acknowledge the fact, you know what? I had enough people through that I'm satisfied with that. However, if you systematically continue to do it by the checklist, exponentially, you're going to have a lot bigger return. And that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. But you know what? There's people that they're not going to run a checklist because, you know what? They're smarter than that.
Yeah.
And, it's frustrating at times because, they run them in the ground and they wonder why,
Yeah. Imagine having to be creative all the time.
Some people, that's exciting. Other people, it's like, dude, I don't want to mess with that.
Well, there's fun to be creative, and I get it. I don't want the same monotonous every single day, but I also don't want to wake up every day and have to go, oh my gosh, I got to recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem effective long-term. It's probably fun for a little bit.
Well, I think it can actually impact just your mentality on things, on how to, or actually have a confidence level,
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you think you maintain culture in an industry or a platform where you have to have where it is optimal to run checklists as well as processes?
I think the accountability's got to be there, and understanding that the accountability is there to benefit the individuals. And if they can understand that, then they'll know that that's exactly what it's about. So, we can dance around this all day long, but ultimately, the only person that's going to run the checklist is going to be the individual that's actually running it. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, going back to Spiral Disc, when I look at the culture of teams, it is detrimental that. Let's back up into this conversation. We were meeting with a buddy of mine that I've known for years, and he's starting out and doing a phenomenal job starting a real estate team. And he's only been licensed for 2 years. They're doing some awesome stuff so far. And he had said, can we sit down, learn a little bit what you do? And we said, absolutely. We will give you every single spreadsheet, system that we use and everything else, because none of that is proprietary. The only thing that is proprietary about our organization is our culture. Really, there's nothing that we do that we haven't ripped off and duplicated, or right? Like we don't have a technology department at Team Integrity. None of this stuff is really proprietary. The only thing is our culture. And I think that when a lot of people grasp and they go out and they go, I want what they have. And you'll see people often try to duplicate stuff, but what they're missing is the culture piece.
Absolutely.
You cannot manufacture culture.
Well, I think that comes with time and trust as well, because you got to build it. It's not just going to happen overnight. A lot of people think that they can do that or whatever. And, and that's I think the number one downfall to individuals that go out and they want to, I call it partner up. Mm-hmm. They'll partner up with somebody and, hey, this is going to be awesome, and they wonder why things can't build out, because they got to build the culture among themselves first. You know? And then they have to have other people that believe in that culture.
And what I found is coming back from the working in churches type world, is we did a lot of trips, servant types trips, mission type trips. And it's amazing how much culture is created when you serve with somebody like that and you get it. And a lot of culture is created through scars, fun and memories happen in the good times, but really culture is created, I think, when it's tough.
Well, I think because the people are there to help pick them up or not let them fall completely.
Yeah. When you can shoulder the burden with somebody, that is when culture is rooted.
I'll give an example here that, you mentioned that when you start to notice that somebody may be slipping in a certain arena, and a daily numbers or the outcome is not what, they're expecting it to be. You could probably dial it all the way back. Something's going on to where you can actually, kind of help them autocorrect and get back on pace.
So usually, and again, you brought this up, you were telling me in the teams is that in your teams that you had, you knew right away, and you even said they called you out
Yeah,
when they could tell that you were not there mentally.
correct.
And I'm sure that you had extra stuff going on outside of
Yeah,
your 9 to 5, quote unquote, and they could pick up on it right away that something was off.
and that's getting to know your people at an extremely deep level, which is great, because ultimately it is one team, one fight.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I look back on it now. It's like, oh my gosh, how in the heck did they know all this stuff? You know, but ultimately it's just pouring into people. If you pour into them, that they're going to pour back into you as well.
Yeah, and not caring is going, I don't care what's going on in your outside life. Just get it handled here.
Yeah.
Now, there's a little bit of that tough love, though, that needs to happen. But because you still have a job to do. But being able to recognize it, to go, hey, we're going to handle this, and then we'll talk about this afterwards.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's delicate because you have personal life and you have business life. But however, if you kind of combine the two together, that's when you can tell. You know, there's some people that I don't know of anybody that can really hit a light switch in our industry going, I'm going to work, bingo. And then as soon as I'm off work, it's off completely. However, there's a time and a place for everything.
Some people do it better than others.
Yep.
But those two will bleed in at some point.
And it goes back, you talk about this culture piece. Reputation's huge, in our industry. And that's what I think that's what's a little bit disappointing with, we're talking about the Antonio Brown thing. It's disappointing that his own reputation is going in the way that it is going.
Yeah.
And it is self-induced, don't get me wrong. But it's just like, slow down, think a little bit, and, because he's talented.
Yeah, I think that goes to the issue of only thinking 5 feet in front of you.
Yeah. Or the here and now.
Yeah. Not looking at going, is this the legacy I want to leave? Like, do I want to look back when I'm 80 years old and go, this is what I was portrayed as, either justifiably or not. This is what's portrayed about me.
You mentioned that. I think it would be embarrassing later on to look
Absolutely.
back, and if that were me acting that way, I mean, I would be like, man, what do my kids think about that? That's just horrible.
So that is a conversation that I have. So it's taken me, when did we start going to Kristen Cole type events together? 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Something
well,
like
I've
that.
been going for quite a while, but yeah.
Or at least the big why conversation of why we do what we do. I think in the last probably 3 or 4 years, that's really become a popular thing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think about that.
Yeah. And it took me 3 or 4 years to kind of whittle it down, but it's like my big why is to lead and influence others such that they could live a life and leave a legacy better than they've ever dreamed of. And that's what gets me going. That's my big why. But a big part of that is leaving that legacy. And it's sad when you see people that are not taking that into consideration whatsoever.
Yeah, it's almost like they're self-destructing.
Yeah, to go, like, I want to make sure that what I do, my day now impacts 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Like that's a big one. That's got to matter. And
Well, there was a lady that posted something. She went through some pretty traumatic stuff going on. She had cancer, had a big tumor. And she had posted something that really resonated with me pretty clearly. It was, I got a second chance, is the way she put it. She goes, however, if you really think about it, we all get second chances every single day when we wake up. It's just, what are we going to do with that chance or that time that day? And it's like, and if you wake up, it's a reset button. So make the most of it. Make the most of that day to, kind of catapult you where you want to go. But I think what happens is, again, we get too complacent. We let the day take hold of us. And then we, at the end of the day, going, oh, can't wait for tomorrow.
yeah,
It's like, well, reverse it and try and take control of the day.
yeah, that's with where we're at in our stage of life, Jenny and I, with kids and whatnot, going, we had a little bit of a, what's nice is you don't wake up and your kids are like 7 or 8 years old. You have a little bit of grace period to grow into it. And we're going now, like, our 10-year-old daughter is remembering stuff from 2 years ago. So now in my mind, I'm going, well, shoot, the stuff that we're doing right now, she's going to remember forever.
Yeah.
It may be foggy later on, but little things are going to pick up that are going to stand out. So now we're trying to go that legacy piece of how do we create memories with them. And I'm learning too is they don't have to be expensive.
No, they don't.
It's the time piece. Like,
Well, that was, I think Jay Papasan had a talk about that. And it was actually pretty interesting because he was talking about, you got a daughter that's 10 there, and you think about it. And I've lived through this, and anybody with teenagers knows this. Your kids don't want to be around you. Starting about, I'm going to say ballpark, 13 years old. They want to be around the friends. They want to be around this. So therefore, you only got a few short golden times to have that impact. Then it becomes a collaborative effort of a village helping raising these kids as well. So
which is so extremely important. Trying to, I don't even know what the word is, not dictate or manipulate, but make sure they're around good people.
Yep.
I look at somebody that is instrumental in the girl's life, Kevin Carney.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a price tag that you could put on having that guy in their lives.
Yeah, it's pretty neat to, again, it goes who you surround yourself with again. And
Yeah.
it just shows many, many times,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. What's the culture of their friends and their friendships?
mm-hmm.
That's a big one, and it's hard to make sure that you're doing the right things without overstepping
it. Yeah. That's a fact. You can go on. Shoot, we could talk about this forever.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right.
What we've got about 8 or 9 minutes left. What we talked about books last week.
We did, and you know what happened?
People listen.
The Facebook police freaking took us off for some reason.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I even sent a little, I don't know, response going, "Hey, what the heck did we do?"
I'm pretty sure
there was nothing. I don't know what we did.
I'm pretty sure that means somebody reported us.
I don't know. It was interesting though because it was a good little podcast.
Did it come back on?
I didn't see. Well, it says I can see it, but nobody else can see it, so you'd have to check it from your profile. But
well, it's on iTunes.
There you go. Yeah.
So we had those that listened to it through iTunes had some good input and downloaded some books. We were in there with one of our agents, Eric, and he was downloading stuff and pretty cool.
Yeah, he asked the question, "Hey, what are some good books?" And boom, he just talked about that.
Yep. What about podcasts? Do you have any?
I don't even. I have so many audiobooks that I kind of consider as podcasts. But it's just it's directive. It's not interaction like we're talking here. So I don't really have any podcasts that I really get into.
I've got a couple that I listen to all the time. One of them it's dependent upon the guest, but Joe Rogan Experience, like it's the most popular podcast ever. So depending on who's on there. I've got one that I started listening to with it's called Cleared Hot. It is with Andy Stumpf. So Andy Stumpf is he was a Navy SEAL and did a lot of parachuting. And I had you watch a video one time where he was giving a story about where he was jumping out of a plane. He had an interpreter on him, and it was the first time this guy had ever jumped out of a plane, and it was crazy. Another one is John Dudley's podcast. It's all about hunting. Absolutely love it. Jocko's podcast.
Yeah, I've listened. You know what? I take that back. I've listened to a little bit of his stuff there too. My attention span is very, very short. So when I see something that's 45 minutes to an hour, I'm out.
You need like the highlight reel.
Yeah, I need like a minute and a half.
Jeez. The 1 minute podcast. There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Just for you.
Cliff notes of the podcast. There you go.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. So what you got going on coming up this month?
Oh goodness, I leave Thursday, heading up to a wedding.
Where at?
Colorado. Actually staying in, where The Shining was made, movie.
Yeah.
There we go.
Did you do that by
Stanley
choice?
Hotel is where the wedding's at. Did, yeah. And then, so staying up there and then heading down, doing some fishing with my dad and my brother, and then we're coming back in the following week, going out to Green Bay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little
within
bit
myself.
about your yearly Broncos game.
So I take my dad every year. I made an agreement with him a couple of years ago to take him to a Bronco game every single year. However, the only catch was it could not be in Denver. So as soon as the season comes out every year, he gets to pick the location, and then he and I kind of head out for the weekend and kind of explore that new city and the stadium and watch the Broncos win or lose. It doesn't really matter.
So
we
you
win.
guys, where did you guys go last year?
Oh, what was last year? Kansas City.
Kansas
We're in
City.
Kansas City. Yeah, went to go see Chiefs play. They lost.
Broncos
okay.
or Chiefs?
Broncos lost. It's okay. We
Yeah.
won. We win every time we go, but whether the team wins or not, it's a different story.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
That's
then
going
yeah.
back to memories. That's
Well, that's why it was made that way. So therefore, we remember the game in Indianapolis. The game in San Diego. The game that it was in New Orleans. So this year it's Green Bay. So we're
What
gonna get
is-
Lambeau out of the field in September before.
what is one of the best memories you've had thus far, or stories of taking your dad to a game?
You know what? I had a good time down in New Orleans at that game. Yeah, it was a comeback game, and they ended up winning it on one of the last plays of the game. So that was actually pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yep. So
Pretty cool experience.
that and was it St. Elmo's? Is one of the restaurants there. Had some killer cocktail sauce. Killer. Hot.
Are you?
Made your face distort, dude. It was like, what in the world? Like every mucous membrane would just
No.
kind of explode.
I am 100% confident nobody from New Orleans listens to this podcast. Between us girls, would you ever go back to New Orleans if you didn't have to?
I love the history there. Not too fond of the crime.
Yeah.
It's just dirty.
Yeah, we were there in February,
Yeah.
and there was like 7 people shot, 3 people killed within 4 blocks of our hotel within 48 hours.
Staying right there looking. Yeah, it's like, man.
Yeah.
And we weren't staying at night. No,
I-
Hotel 6 or anything.
We were staying at a Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah.
I
Just downstairs. It's like, what?
I
in the
hate
world?
flying. I take that back. I've become better at flying.
You've been all right.
Yep. I could not get on a plane fast enough to get out of New
Yeah, it was
Orleans.
an interesting little area there.
Yeah. Yep.
Bourbon Street's nasty. That's all.
So gross.
Very similar to was it 6th or 4th in Austin? That's
No.
just,
Like
it's just
the
nasty.
nicest part of Dirty Six
Yeah.
is
Leaving.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's Rainy Street. That's where it's at.
Yeah, Randy's nice. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
So
Any last words of wisdom?
I don't have any this week. We got to figure out what kind of topics we want to talk about this next week. But
Yep.
This one here was just made up on the go. So
There we go.
very good. All right.
All right. Well, have fun on your trip,
Thank
and
you. Likewise.
we will be back.
Late.